Sure.
Okay, Eric, are we going?
Yeah, it's recording.
Great, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Kimberly Chulis. I'm here to talk about the brand meter. The topic is social media driving brand activation and loyalty. I'm a co-founder with the company Core Analytics. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk more about the brand meter, some specific text mining examples, and then we'll get into some game activation. So just to summarize that once more, presentation overview, I'm going to introduce you to Core Analytics, talk about the brand meter architecture and system processes, look at some social media data examples and the type of variables that you can extract from raw comment data. Then look at some very specific examples where we're extracting variables around product. In this case, a lot of the data that we're looking at is grocery store data, so corn, demographic, whether the consumer has children or not. Looking at different types of activations in terms of purchase, whether they're soliciting product opinions, they're making recommendations on products. Some personality type variables that are derived from an aggregation of some of the base level variables that we're looking at. Compulsive consumption in terms of addiction is one that we'll focus on later. And then we talk about 9 different types of loyalty and how these different activations are mapped across the 3 channels to the different types of loyalty. We have an activation to loyalty gaming, sample matrix that I'll go through. We'll talk about some specific game analytics examples, and then if there's time, just a few slides on the brand meter, which is now in private beta. So Core Analytics is a Chicago, we started out in Chicago and now we have a Bay Area presence, so we're also a Bay Area tech startup. We've historically been an advanced analytics consulting and solutions firm, and in April of last year we began development on something called the brand meter. The brand meter, the initial module was social media specific, and a lot of the variables are derived through the text mining that we'll talk about now. And then we've also introduced a web and a game module. And it's all around measuring customer activation and loyalty metrics. So we've gotten some traction in the social game space, and we've created actually a subsidiary that we're calling Game Loyalty. And that's looking at advanced social game analytics, player analytics, both from a marketing perspective and a game design perspective. There's a lot of interest in branded virtual goods sales and optimization around that, and then also driving offline brand sales through the game channel. Okay, without reading all of this, this is just some information on me. I'm a co-founder. I have lots of experience in analytics, project management, strategy. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies and some of the larger consulting firms in the marketing space. Also completing a PhD program in consumer behavior at Purdue University, part-time and remotely at the moment, though I will have to go back at some point. One of the interesting things is there's only about 6 programs in the country that focus on consumer behavior in this respect, looking at sociology and psychology and retail theory and combining that all. So I think that becomes relevant in terms of the development of the brand meter and some of the conceptual theories that underlie the algorithms that go into the loyalty. We also organize the Chicago area and the Bay Area social media, web, and game analytics groups. We have hundreds of members in Chicago, and we just reached the 100 mark here in the Bay Area. And there's a Click Insights blog. And some of my linguistic background comes from being a Berlitz method instructor for a bunch of years before I went back to graduate school. I program in SAS, SPSS, SQL, and other languages. Aldo Dykers is not here this year. We presented last year. He made it to the conference then, but he's actually a client this week. And he has over 9 years of technical architecture, systems, ERP, business intelligence experience. He's worked for some of the larger consulting firms in Europe and has a very strong programming and technical background. He's also an organizer of the different social media groups. So it's primarily the 2 of us as co-founders right now. We work with some developers, and we'll talk about what we're doing. So here's the brand meter. It's we have a tri-focus on the social games, the social media, the games, and the web channel. And we look at customer activation and loyalty. We have a reporting dashboard that I'll show you some screenshots of. We also do competitive analysis, so different brands and where segments of customers are for different brands, and you can benchmark and see what's happening over time in relation to your competitors. Customer segmentation, that also gets into some predictive analytics. We have social media Datamarts, and that happens at the start of at the outset of every client engagement, because all of the data feeds into the reporting system. Okay, so here's an overview of the brand meter architecture. This is the social media module sample. You start out with your raw social media comment files, wherever you're getting those from. We'll talk about that in a second. You pull some other ones out through APIs and different processes. That goes into the brand meter data warehouse. A lot of the social media data, if you're not pulling that in and categorizing that on the fly and storing that somewhere in a data warehouse or in our brand meter data warehouse, there's a time limit on it and it's perishable, and you'll have to pay a lot of money from data providers to get that later. So it's a recommended best practice to start storing that data even if you're not ready right now to do text mining with that, so you have a history when you're ready to do that. The yellow circle section is actually where we get into the text mining. We take all this raw comment data, the raw social media data. It goes through a lot of data cleansing and manipulation and the text mining. And then it's stored in an analytic data mart. So it's no longer the raw data, it's customer IDs by channel with associated variables, whether it's product preference or it's personality type or behavioral variables or loyalty metrics and activation metrics.
This is coming straight from comments off of like Facebook stuff and stuff like that?
It can, yeah. If you've got a Facebook feed and you have access to your Facebook brand data, it can be coming from there. We'll talk about this in a second, the different places you can get the data from. Okay.
Question. How do you resolve the identity matching issue?
Well, I mean, it really, that's a problem for everyone to deal with, but even if you just want to do in-target channeling with Twitter ID, for example, and you're going to market back to them in Twitter, you have Twitter, and over time you have a time series data of demographic and behavioral and other variables at the Twitter ID level. You can aggregate that and then market them back to them directly in that channel. If you can link that, whether you've collected that data information from your customer or you have another way of tying that together, then you can do that cross-channel. Okay, so the data comes out of the analytic data mart. You can go into the segmentation, the predictive modeling algorithms, and then the dashboard reporting. So in terms of where you get the raw comment data from, this is actually an outdated list at this point. I've been using this one for the past 10 months, but we've got the big ones like Radian 6, Blog Pulse, Technorati, and a lot of the buzz and the commenting. And then now there's the Firehose data providers. So NIP is a big one, Data Sift. You can still extract variables directly and export them from Radian 6 and a lot of the other the providers. And the data is fairly expensive to purchase, and you can purchase it in different volumes based on your needs. So just here's a quick example scenario of what an API looks like. And this is from Viral Heat. Viral Heat is one of the lower cost providers. It's a little bit trickier to do this API to get the data out, but it is one of the lower cost ones. So you get a bunch of Excel files, and you accumulate this and you put it into your social media warehouse. Here's a very simple view of what the brand meter social media data mart looks like. And there's one for gaming and there's one for web that looks pretty similar to this. You can see that we have different tables that are associated with demographic information. You're collecting gender, age, ID, whether they have pets, their household size, or product category. What are their preferences? They've purchased corn, they've purchased beer, they are a consumer of all these different products. So those go into the product category. And each time you're collecting this data, you always store a date with the comment and an ID, and also the channel. So you're able to aggregate that over, at least in a time series within that specific channel, and hopefully, at least for some of your consumers, you have a way of mapping across channel. In terms of mood, we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's also it's text mining to identify mood, personality types, the activation and the loyalty metrics. These are the core of what we do. And we also have a table where we store a lot of service-related comments, whether they're positive, negative, because service is such a large component in customer brand satisfaction and loyalty, and experiencing around packaging and taste and atmosphere of the store. Okay, so before we just kind of look at some of the data, we'll make a nod to customer privacy. Customer data privacy is very different across regions and countries. Right now, it's liberal compared to the EU, but there's a lot of legislation in place to tighten that up a little. We've got the Consumer Data Privacy, Consumer Protection Act reforms. There's proposals for online do not track bills. There's pressure on the pharmaceutical marketers to regulate the social media data mining and the health information that members or patients are exposing online around that and may not be aware of. Consumer advertising law, there's HIPAA compliance, and then some recent Facebook API data leaks that were in the news. Okay, so let's take a look at just one example from Twitter. Here's the comment. The raw comment data says the Food Lion on Litchford bakes really good bread, which incidentally goes great with fresh mozzarella, olive oil, basil, and peppercorns. I changed the name of this Twitter ID, but we have the Twitter ID here. And so just from looking at this, we can see that it doesn't take too much Googling to figure out that there's a Food Lion in Litchford, and that's in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we have the location, or at least the current location of this customer. We know that they buy baked goods at the Food Lion at this location, and in general, they like baked goods or bread. And they're a gourmet. They've got this whole recipe going, and it indicates that they're a foodie. So we've got forward progress. The name's been changed, and if you go back to, for example, in this case, this is socialmention.com, and it's a free data provider. So it only has about 5 days worth of data, but this is where this data source is coming from. So we take a look and we can actually, and I blocked the name out here, but this is the information that we can figure out. Not only does this consumer live or shop in North Carolina at the Food Lion, but we can see that, this is the second consumer, I'm sorry. Anyway, so he's in California, and he has a dog. He shops at Safeway. He likes farmers markets, so he might be an organic shopper, and he probably likes produce and flowers. We know that he works for NAVTEC, he's married, he's male, he's Caucasian. There's a picture of him, so through some facial recognition technology, you can also get an average age. He has photography as a hobby, he went to City College in San Francisco, and a whole bunch of other information. So this is really valuable data that you can actually tie back in this channel to this individual consumer and market from a brand perspective directly back to him. And he's got a Google profile. This is a case where he actually provides online links to all of his data, and you can do that data integration across channels with this consumer. Okay, so in example 3, this is Twitter and Facebook. I just did a search on my asthma because there's real potential in the healthcare industry in terms of finding people with conditions or marketing from a healthcare perspective. So you type in my asthma, and there's only, like 3 or 4 days worth in social mention again here. So you've got 238 mentions, and almost all of them have identified somebody who actually has asthma. So and let's take a look at one of them. What can we see about this consumer? Well, just by doing a search, we can see from the picture, African American, she's female, she's about mid-20s, she has asthma, she's single because she talks a lot about a recent breakup, she doesn't have children, and she's also in the Facebook forum around asthma. So these are just 3 examples of all the information that's embedded that becomes very important from a marketing standpoint. You can tie it back directly to that individual in that channel. All right, so let's take a look at some specific text mining and how that happens. Okay, so you start with the raw comment data. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Maybe I might have to speed it up a little.
It's 11:30.
Okay, so we've got all these different types of variables that typically you might buy and append from an Axiom or from one of the third-party data providers. It's very expensive data. A lot of this data, if you could capture it this way, is free, and you can mine the variables and store them in your own internal database for target marketing. You can do it around product category, brand, demographics, lifestyle, food personality, motivation, experience, and then all the activation and loyalty. So let's take a look. In the Datamart, if we were trying to populate the product category for a grocery store, and it's a very labor-intensive process when you're doing this from a text mining and a manual text mining perspective. But you pick the different departments and the categories, and then there's sample of the scan words or the keywords that you're looking for. So if you're looking for people who consume produce, you're going to start by looking for scanning for onion, corn, avocado, apple, and all of the other ones. If you're looking for pharmacy and you want to see what type of prescriptions, aspirin, vitamins that they're taking. If you want to see that they have pets, you're going to look for dog, cat, bird, all the different brand names associated with pet food. And chips, Tostitos for snacks, and you can put them all in different categories, and that's your product database there that you're working with. In this specific example, we're looking for consumers who purchase corn. Okay? So you've got all of your raw data, and it went through and scanned each one of these for an instance of corn in it to see how many were true corn consumers. And then you go through and you can see there's only 3 out of the list that we're looking at right here. Of course, there's a lot more data in the actual data set. And what you do is once you put in the corn, you've got a stop word list. So here we've got these resulting logic rules, and it's manually based on. You say, okay, well, it's only it's not corner. So it's only 4 characters only. It's not candy corn. There's several different examples. And if you want to figure out who to market candy or candy corn to, that can go in its own. This is a candy corn consumer flag, but right here we're just interested in the vegetables. It's not popcorn, it's not a corn dog, it's not corn syrup. So you get this whole long list of stop words, and you're able to clearly identify. And what happens at the end of that is the uncleansed frequency. First of all, you can see the distribution changes once you cleanse the data. And this, okay, so by going through this whole stop word list in this text mining process, you're able to do 66% misclassification reduction with this keyword. And it's an iterative process where you continue refining this. In the second case, let's take a look at a demographic variable. Here's a whole bunch of different ones, whether they have pets, whether they have children, whether they're grandparents, if they're organic shoppers, if they're urban versus rural, if they're price sensitive. For example, if you're scanning for price sensitive, you might look for instances where they're talking about coupons or something is cheap or it's inexpensive or what a deal, what a steal, that kind of stuff. And then you go through the stop word list and you refine it. In this case, we're looking for presence of children. And it's different. Each one of them has a different resulting accuracy rate. Children, or kids in this instance, actually collects more accurate than corn did. And you need fewer resulting logic rules, but you're saying not all with kids, not a bunch of kids, not my sister's or brother's kids, or any kind of variation of that. If there's profanity, generally they're not talking about their kids. You take out grandkids. I didn't see, anyway, so what happens in this case is it's a 34% misclassification reduction. And you can see that a lot of the comments here around kids are on blogs. Back in corn, a lot of them happened in Twitter. Okay, 2 more quick examples. It's interesting if you're a grocery store to figure out who your organic shoppers are, particularly if you're not an organic grocery store. You might do keyword searches for organic, healthy, unprocessed, antioxidant, eco, artesian, etc., cage-free, composting. And also, if they're commenting that they shop at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, these people overall tend to have an organic bent to their grocery taste. Okay, so this has marketing strategy implications. Like, why do we care if they're an organic consumer? Well, first of all, they're going to pay a premium, on average, maybe 20% more, so you can charge higher prices, even from a segmentation perspective, if you can figure out who your organic shoppers are in your database. Packaging, they prefer glass packaging, they prefer recycled shopping bags, and they have more persistent loyalty, so you have different loyalty strategies and retention strategies for your organic shoppers. Okay, what about price-sensitive consumers? We talked about some of the keywords there. And you can target them. Once you can figure out who's price-sensitive in your consumer database, then you can offer them the deals. There's really no need to market to discounts to your non-price-sensitive customers. You're going to have different marketing strategies for them. Okay, what about activation? Let's get to some of that. So what is activation? It measures the baseline and ongoing levels of of general activation around brand. That can be an aggregation of volume of comments on a brand. It can take a look at their mood when they're discussing the brand, their mood over time, their personality, demographics, whether they're information seekers, whether they're recommenders, and all the different social sites that they use. So each one of these becomes different. There's a very long, extensive list of activation measures that are possible, and they're different across the different channels. You can see how customers are engaged around the brand. What's a baseline portfolio? You want to understand what happens over time to see, are you building more customer activation in a certain strategic segment, and are you building a certain specific type of loyalty? So you have to start with that baseline measurement first. Okay, so there's some that you can capture through text mining. There's some that you can capture through web analytics data. So on the text mining side, you can figure out when a purchase happens. You can see when a return happens. You can understand when a consumption occurs. someone's recommending, if they're complaining, if they're repurchasing an item, and if they're seeking information or they're seeking comparison alternatives. And then you can also match that up. If you can get the web analytic data, you can figure out who's following brand tweets, so followers, figuring out who's a fan on Facebook, if they like a brand comment, if they post brand comments, if they click on brand ads, they buy a virtual good. These are very engaged activations at the brand level that map to different types of loyalty. If they answer a survey or they sign up for a blog feed. Okay, so just in terms of using text mining to identify purchase actions, it's all around some of these keywords. Again, I scored some great deals. I picked up some bread at Food Line. I stopped by Kroger for lunch meat. I ran out to pick up. It's the only place I shop. These are all specific instances, and you can use all of these keywords associated with purchasing action, and then you actually can flag them in the database. You know, whether you want to set it at 1 or somebody's made 5 or more purchases, but at whatever point you want to call them a customer versus a prospect, and customers versus prospects in marketing strategy get treated very differently. So you can build that flag and save it in the database, and you know that person purchased along different product categories when you save those. Okay.
You store database, you store the result of the mining, or you store the tags?
In this, well, we have a database where that's all stored, but you try not to deal with that messy data. Once you extract the intelligence out of that, you have a flag. This is a corn purchaser, this is a wine purchaser. You just store that flag with the date, the first date it happened, and then every instance, and then you can count them and aggregate them by channel. Let's just, you know, I use SAS, SPSS, SQL, some freeware and open source system is what the brand meter is currently based on. But let's take a look at how you would do this in SPSS. So for those of you familiar with that, this is a point-and-click tool. It's you know, very popular with marketing groups. What you're actually going to do is you're going to build it, to compute the variable, you're going to build a purchase flag, and then what it is the character index, and it scans that variable. It's in a column and it has all the comments, and it'll tell you, A, does it exist in that, is it scanned through and does it find it, and if it does, where is the starting location of that, which becomes very important for more advanced semantic technologies to understand the word location and the sentence structure. Okay, and then you can see that in this instance, so 6% of them made a purchase, which is pretty low, so you just wouldn't say the word bought, you look for a whole sequence of keywords to find this. Okay. And like I said, you save the date and time associated with that. You can time order this events and then collect time series data. You can do forecasting with it as well. It becomes a data set like any other.
11:40.
Okay, so we're actually kind of running towards the end of the schedule here, but sorry, I didn't have time to go through everything here. If you'd like to, please email me, and I'll be happy to send you a copy of this or discuss it in more information. Let me just see if there's something really specific. Let me talk a little bit about loyalty just for a few minutes. So we focus on 9 different types of loyalty. We had 8, and then we've kind of honed in on addiction and discovering who's addicted, because now we're more active in the gaming channels. But we look at familial loyalty, we look at company loyalty, so if they have a real strong affiliation to a brand. Brand loyalty, if they're committed to repurchase and they tend to give positive word of mouth about a brand. Monopoly loyalty is pretty interesting in the sense that they really don't have any other viable alternatives, and that kind of determines that you don't really have to work very hard to maintain these customers, probably focus your customer retention efforts elsewhere. There's cost of change loyalty. People have different attitudes towards change. They have different emotional and psychological consequences. There's incentivized loyalty, there's habitual loyalty, addicted loyalty, and finally committed loyalty, which is the best kind. Okay, and all these different activations map to different ones. You can see that these are different loyalty-related actions, so whether they make brand recommendations, the volume of tweets, and you want to see people progress along these different loyalty levels, ideally. When they buy virtual goods, it's a very high committed type of loyalty action. One thing to note, not all customer loyalty is desirable. Not only are there different types, but some of it you really need to put a value qualifier in. And for instance, like a high utilization member in a healthcare plan, it might not be your ideal customer. You don't necessarily just want to blindly promote loyalty or frequent credit card use if they're not paying their credit card bills. Just finally, I'll take you through, this is some of the reports that are coming out of this in the segmentation. So we've got the game channel, the web channel, the social media channel. These are the different types of loyalty. You can see you've got committed in the activation of game. If they buy a virtual good, this is designated as very high loyalty level. If they list on a Twitter group or they sign up for an RSS feed, this indicates medium level. This is specifically in the social channel, and it maps to the brand and the different committed loyalty. So within our system, we kind of map all the different activations to loyalty, and you can see over time where your percentages of customers, if you have a pie chart, and figure out, and I think we have even, so this is a reporting portal of the brand meter, and you can go into the data, the gaming, and the web, and I'm just trying to find that pie chart right now to show you. So it'll show you by region, your split on brand, what type of loyalty you have. And you can look at this over time to see if you're gaining share in your committed loyalty, etc. Okay, so those are just more screenshots of the reporting and the dashboard as it is right now in development. If you have any questions, this is my Twitter ID, my phone number, our blog, and our company website. And we really welcome any kind of questions that come